You're listening to Scaling Up Services, where we speak with entrepreneurs, authors, business experts, and thought leaders to give you the knowledge and insights you need to scale your service-based business faster and easier. And now, here is your host, business coach Bruce Eckfeldt.
Are you a CEO looking to scale your company faster and easier? Check out Thrive Roundtable. Thrive combines a moderated peer group mastermind, expert one-on-one coaching, access to proven growth tools, and a 24/7 support community. Created by Inc. award-winning CEO and certified scaling up business coach Bruce Eckfeldt, Thrive will help you grow your business more quickly and with less drama. For details on the program, visit eckfeldt.com/thrive. That's ECKFELDT.com/thrive.
Welcome, everyone. This is Scaling Up Services. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm your host. And our guest today is Joe Mikitish. He is owner of Winning Reviews. We're going to talk to him about what he's learned about how you can use Google in not only from a SEO point of view, but really from a Google Maps, localized content to really help drive your business. If you're a service-based business that deals with going to people's homes, going to people's businesses, are localized from a geographic point of view, this is really going to be a helpful interview, a helpful episode to really understand what services are available out there. I think there's a couple of things we're going to talk about you probably haven't heard about or don't know much about that are really key and can be really influential and really productive if you learn how to use them. But it's all about reviews. It's all about getting your business to show up when people are on Google Maps and Google My Business and really leverage that platform. So with that, Joe, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we dig into all the kind of review strategies and how you can use reviews to drive your listings and drive more traffic, let's talk a little bit about your background, how you got into this. What was the kind of epiphany or the process you went through to realize, what you can do with Google Maps and Google My Business? And then we can kind of get into the content, but give us a sense of the backstory.
Sure. Yeah. So I have an interesting way of getting to the marketing arena, which is kind of where I sit is marketing, even though the way we do it is often through software. But I actually worked for Microsoft and HP, and I was an engineer, but I sat in between engineering and marketing. So when the marketing team was trying to figure out how to sell or market products, I would go get engineering specs from the engineering team and then bring them over to the marketing team and explain it to them and help them develop
translate. Yeah.
Stuff. So, if you've ever seen Office Space, I was that guy who's like, hey, they're engineers. They're not allowed to talk to people. So, and so I had that personality that could fit between the two. I didn't take any marketing classes in college other than, your standard little marketing classes freshman year. But, they kind of recognized early on that I had an affinity to translate between technical jargon and what people could actually understand, the consumers could understand. So I worked for those two companies for a while and did some other freelance consulting work for big companies, Fortune 50 companies. Then in 2005, I started my own cloud computing business and started marketing to small businesses selling cloud computing, which it wasn't called cloud computing back then. But
yeah, exactly.
We were real early to the game, so we had to educate a lot of people on what even it was. And then we started working with lots of nonprofits. We work with hundreds of nonprofits nationally. And so I spent thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing over the course of a decade and realized that most marketing experts have no idea what they're doing. They're not really experts. And really almost none of the marketing that I did to market my business other than face-to-face referrals, BNI, and that kind of thing even worked. Yeah. So, but I knew that there was a secret to doing online marketing that made sense. That wasn't just throwing stuff on Facebook and praying that people would see it, that push marketing, throwing your message all over the place, putting ads in print or in, radio or any of that, just hoping and praying people would see it at the moment or hear it at the moment they needed it. And so about 6 years ago, I created an outsourced sales business. In that sales business, we started noticing that people were checking online reviews before buying from us. And so, and that was with my other business and with all the businesses we were doing sales for. So, it led us to trying all these review softwares. We started buying licenses to them all, and none of them did what we wanted. And we're like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. So
what were they doing? What was the software that?
Yeah, it was just automating the process of asking for reviews and getting those reviews in the right place, whether that's Google or Home Advisor or wherever people want reviews, Facebook, whatever. So a lot of those software packages were super complicated, either from the customer customer's perspective or our perspective, running the software, it was clunky. They were all venture capital backed, so they looked fancy, but they didn't do what I wanted them to. So we developed our own. So we have our own review software. We make it easy, super easy for both sides. That's really what we wanted to do, was do that. And then we started selling that software independent of sales. We just started selling it to home services businesses, and they were like, this is great. This is the best thing on the market. They would get 100 reviews or 200 reviews on Google, and nobody would see them. And so because their Google Maps listing was not done right, they wouldn't even have pictures on there. Their logo, address would be wrong. Their phone number, something that their ads management company put on there. It was just all kinds of messed up. So I started teaching people one-on-one how to manage Google Maps, which, if you can imagine me spending 2 hours with every single customer, I just like, oh my gosh, there has to be a more efficient way. And so several people said, why don't you teach classes on this? Several of our customers are like, this has to be inefficient for you. And they were right. So I started teaching classes, and the first class, I think, had 3 or 4 people in it. And I'm like, well, that's not as inspiring as what I wanted. And then, last several months, because Google Maps is so much in everybody's mind business-wise, because so much search is done on maps now. Yeah. And Google is moving away from the SEO model of backlinks and all this stuff, and they're moving to that zero-click model where they want people to stay on their platform. And so what do they put right at the top of every local search? Maps and maps lists. So, the classes are becoming very popular. I sell out every single one of them now. So, locally and nationally, we do online and in person here. I'm in Boise, Idaho. And so selling out classes is great. And then so I teach classes on that, and that's led into doing next door classes as well. So 2 areas where business owners are just overwhelmed by it. They get in there and they're like, wow, there's just so many options. It's so much stuff going on. What do I actually need to do to get my phone ringing? And so I teach workshops on that. They're about 2 hours. And it's great. It's been a lot of fun. And I love getting texts from my customers every day with screenshots of how many phone calls they're getting from Google Maps. That's what gets me up in the morning when I get a text at 7 a.m. and somebody's like, hey, check it out. I got 12 calls today or yesterday from Google Maps. I'm like, it inspires me, because I'm a business owner, and I've been so frustrated with marketing all these years. Now I've got something that works for other people.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I like the story, because I always find that, sort of software and systems that are, developed to solve your own problems, being in the business and seeing the need and not finding a solution and developing yourself, and then realizing that's the business, being able to turn that into a platform that you can then, license, market, sell subscriptions to, is a great story. And I see so many kind of products and companies that are built around that story. So why don't we just kind of help people understand, kind of the pieces we're talking about here. We talk about Google Maps, we talk about Google Nextdoor, just kind of lay out what these things are, how they relate to, what people know in terms of Google search. Like, I go to Google and I search for something. How are these things different? How do I get to them? What are the platforms? I mean, we talk about desktop, we talk about mobile. Sure. Why are these things sort of important, and what's sort of new and developing around them that make them a really interesting platform for marketing?
Sure. Really, I'll focus on Google for this conversation, but, I'll talk Nextdoor as well. But, Google's platform, whether it's search or maps, are so integrated now. If you're looking for a plumber or a roofer, anyone working on or in the home, and, lawn care, you name any of those service industries, really the differentiator is no longer how strong your SEO package is, right? It's how strong your Google Maps listing is, and whether you show up in that group of 3, that magical group of 3 maps. I mean, anybody who's listening to this can go on Google right now and type in plumber near me or electrician or any of those, and you're going to see those 3 maps listings. And those 3 maps listings is the magic. That's the secret sauce of getting the phone calls. Obviously, what inspires people to make those calls, whoever's going to get called first is the one with the most reviews and the good quality reviews. But being in the list, if you're not in the list, you can have 1,000 reviews and some other guy has 50. That guy with 50, his listing is showing up in that group of 3 every time, and you're not. He's getting the calls.
So this is an organic result, meaning this is not paid placement. This is if you have a strong listing and Google decides that you are a good fit for what a user is searching for, they're going to drop you into one of these top 3 slots. Mm-hmm. And those are map listings. I guess, how does Google distinguish between searches that are map related versus searches that are not? Like, if I'm just looking for a piece of content, like who won the World Series in 1956, that's a content informational search, not a map search. How does Google know if I type in, that when I type in plumber, like, oh, okay, now I'm dealing with something that might be local Google Map related versus just general content related?
Yeah, so they've come up with this cool thing called business categories, and then services that are under those business categories. Then they also assign groups of keywords or search terms that people commonly search when they're searching for those businesses. So Google knows, I mean, they have all of the data in the world and all the business intelligence in the world to know that when you're searching for something, you're searching for a local business or some help from local businesses. So they're going to present you those maps listings for those local business searches almost all the time. You have to get really obscure with your search terms to trick Google into thinking that it's something else. But even in the plumbing industry, there's hundreds and hundreds of keywords. And if the plumbers do it right and they pick all the business categories that are correct and they fill out all their services and they do all of the work on Google Maps, Google's a matchmaking service. That's the way I relate to Google. Somebody's searching for something. Google wants to give them exactly what they're looking for. I mean, one time I accidentally, and you may have done this even yourself, a lot of people have, they accidentally changed their default search engine in their web browser to Bing or Yahoo or something. And then you type in a search term and you're like, what is this? It has nothing to do with what I'm looking for. This is crazy. Google's lost their mind. And then you realize you're not on Google's platform. Yeah. And, and you're like, oh, of course. And then you go back and change over to Google. Google is very good at what they do. They're a great matchmaking service. And if Yahoo and Bing could do that kind of searches, we would all use their platforms too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And now the results that you're talking about, these aren't just kind of Google search results. These are results of companies and individuals who have listed their businesses as a Google business, that it's pulling the data from that, or it's deciding based on the data that what to show and what information to show. Like this isn't going to happen automatically. You need to actually list yourself on Google to be able to get yourself to show up. Is that correct?
Exactly. You have to go in there and create a Google My Business listing to show up on maps and show up in those searches. And there's this misconception that when you get a website and then you have an SEO company doing SEO, that's going to do this for you. And it's totally not true. They're two completely different sides of Google. So you can do all the SEO in the world and have the most amazing website ever created by man, and it's not going to help you show up in maps.
Because you haven't created a profile, because you haven't actively created a profile on Google My Business.
And even if you did, it's not a determining factor of whether your maps listing shows up.
Oh, because you have to fill it out correctly and strategically, and for it to actually make the cut of getting into the rankings.
Exactly. Yep.
And tell us, because generally, are there types of businesses that this works well for, and types of businesses that this doesn't work well for? Or how do you kind of navigate or decide for a client, if this is a good strategy for them or not?
Yeah, the people who get the most benefit are the ones who are selling in their local market, right? So whether that's, within blocks of your building, maybe you're an automotive shop and you sell within a 3-mile radius of your office or of your building. Or if you're a realtor and you sell across a giant territory, maybe the entire Dallas metro area that includes Fort Worth and Arlington and everything. So it works great for those people. Doesn't work so great for people who sell on a national basis. So business coaches, if you're doing local business coaching, great. If you're Tony Robbins, probably not recommended.
And why not? Like, why is that different, and why does it not compete well, or why does it not perform well?
It's just not enough eyeballs on it, right? So, and people aren't searching for a Tony Robbins or a Grant Cardone or a Ty Lopez type person on Google Maps or locally. They're looking in, and Google's not going to even present it to them unless that person has got a Google My Business page in that one local market. So here in Boise, we have, say 500,000 people in this area. There's not enough business for a Tony Robbins person to bother with it. Where a plumber, it's the difference between that plumber being able to put his kids through college and not, right? Yeah. That's literally the difference. When I talk to my customers who come to my classes, they tell me this is the difference between me having 3 employees through the slow season and not being able to afford to keep those people and having to lay them off. Yeah. So it's life-changing, where on a national scale, it's not, but the local businesses, it is the thing that is driving business now. And any local services businesses know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. They get one bad review on Google and, oh my goodness, it's like the world's falling down on them.
Yeah. And what do you put on the listings? I mean, walk us through a little bit about what Google's actually collecting in terms of information about you, your business. I mean, I know for like search engine optimization, there's all this strategy of finding these kind of tail keywords that are, going to help you be unique, or help, bring in the right traffic, or, using the right, kind of getting the right keywords in place in your content so that you show up correctly. How do you do that on the business side?
Yeah, you do that almost the same way you do on websites, right? So you create content with those keywords. And so there's a couple of ways to do that. One is your profile. When you log into Google My Business, there's a section called info, and there's an entire profile that needs to be filled out. And there's two sections that almost everybody ignores, and that's services and products. And in there, you have the opportunity to fill out what your services are and give good, solid descriptions of each one of the services you provide. And then if you're a product business or a service business, you can use the product section to really detail that in like 1,000 characters or more, what it is each one of your services or products are. So when Google is matching people, we used to back in like, say, 2007, everybody's like, you got to have a blog on your website, right? Why did you have to have a blog on your website back then? Is Google would index that information, and then they would use that to present your website to people who are searching for your exact products and services. Well, now you do that with Google Maps, and then you also embed all those keywords like you're talking about into the metadata on your photos. So when you're doing photo postings on your Google My Business page, you have to geotag them with the longitude and latitude of your physical location, or your Google Maps listing. If you don't have a physical location, they still assign you one based on your service area.
Okay.
So you have to fill out the metadata in the photos correctly, or it just doesn't help you, right? So a lot of businesses, I see they have thousands of photos on there, but they're still not showing up on maps. And I look at the photos, and they're all straight off their iPhone, so they're named like IMG, and they got a bunch of numbers. And so Google has no idea what that is, and then because they didn't name it what it is, and then they didn't geotag it, so Google doesn't know that that's their photo that's owned by them, so they don't know that's their original. And it doesn't help boost their Maps listing up by saying, hey, this photo is attached to this Google My Business page. Here's the geocodes of my Maps listing. And each one of those that you do, whether you're posting it on there or Nextdoor or any other place that Google's indexing, Facebook, it's going to help your Maps listing because it's going to show that you're creating original content and you're intelligent enough to attach that to your business in the right way. And so there's a lot of metadata that goes into the photos. So in my workshop, a good like 45 minutes of the 2 hours is how to do photos and videos correctly to get your Maps listing boosted and get people's eyeballs on your listing. So, I'll give you the example of a guy, he does mobile oil changes. So he's competing with traditional oil change shops, and Google didn't know how to classify him. So they were sending him like pizza parlor search results. So as soon as he came to my class and put all those search keywords into his content, into his services, into his products, and then into the photos, he went from like 5 to 10 views on Google Maps per month to 4,000. And his phone calls went from like 1 or 2 calls to hundreds. So obviously that totally dorked with his business a little bit. He had to go hire people and that kind of thing. I told him, I was like, good problems. I got the fix for you. Go to Jiffy Lube and go, who's looking for a job? So, but that's the difference is Google just wants to bring him the business where people are actually searching for what he does. They just don't know how. So we just give them the tools to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's a classic example of like, if you don't understand how the system works, you're liable to miss opportunities and not really leverage it. But, once you really understand how Google is using this content, you can optimize what you're doing and how you do it to increase the results. And it sounds like this is, somewhat of an area that is, still being discovered by the general market. Like if you get in there and start doing this stuff now, you can have a leg up on the majority of competition in your market, because it doesn't sound like many people are really optimizing around this yet.
No, in fact, I don't know anybody who is. I know that there's other trainers out there that are teaching people online how to do this, but they're charging thousands of dollars for their classes. Yeah. And so the average business owner, A, doesn't know where to find those people. B, they're not going to spend $3,400 on a class. So that's sight unseen to them.
Yeah.
So we created a structure where people who are local small business and service businesses can leverage these tools and not need a marketing expert to do the work. Yeah. Obviously, there's the time-money equation, right? So if they got more time than money, then they can do the work themselves. Yeah. And they can then outsource the work if the money equation starts taking over. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, people come to my classes, I would say 95% of them end up doing the work themselves. And we make it easy enough where we go, hey, here's what you need to do on a daily basis. Here's what you need to do on a weekly basis. Here's your little checklist. Just do the work. And then, inevitably they're sending me screenshots because their competitors are not doing it. I've never seen a Google My Business page done correctly. Not one. And I've looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them from around all over the country in all 50 states. We work in all 50 states and all U.S. territories. I've never seen one done right. And that's one of the services I offer is I'll look at your Google My Business page for free, and I'll just give you a little bit of feedback for people. I'm in B&I, right? And so I do working in BNI nationally through BNI Connect. And I talk to business owners all over the country every day, and I've never seen one done even 10% right. They're all dorked up. And I'm like, do this, this, and this, and that'll beat out your competition. Now, if you want to dominate, take the next step.
Yeah. So that's all about listing and making sure that you're showing up right and you've got the right content, and Google is sort of seeing you as the right type of business to do the right matches. Let's talk about the review side of it. How do reviews kind of play into this from kind of an algorithm point of view, or from how do they affect your profile or your ability to get listed? And then we'll talk a little bit about how to get the right reviews and how to amp that up.
Yeah, and reviews don't matter as much as what one would think on where you rank in maps. So, or in search. So if when somebody's searching for, say, a plumber, what determines whether you're in that group of 3? Reviews really don't matter, right? So what reviews help you with is when people see those 3 listings, or they're on maps on their phone and they do a search for a plumber, that you're the one getting the calls. It's a psychology thing to incentivize people to call you. And I always do this thing when I have a class. I pull up a listing of 3, say, plumbers, and I'm like, okay, here's these 3 plumbers. One has 2 reviews and an average of 3 stars. So, he's got a 1 star and a 5 star. Then you've got another guy who's got 48 reviews and 4.8 stars. And then you got another one that's got, say, 300 and something, and it's, 4.9 stars. Who are you going to call? The one exactly. With, the most reviews and what looks the best. You may get in there and read some of them. But by and large, if you got a plumbing problem and say your toilet's leaking all over your floor, you're going to just go, that guy's got several hundred reviews. Call Bob, get him out here, fix my toilet. And you don't even bother calling the other 2 unless the first guy doesn't pick up his phone.
Yeah, exactly. So, triage. You're trying to triaging the situation. Good enough.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, and that's just almost always the way it works. People do read reviews. I get that a lot where, my customers call me and they're like, hey, check this out. I asked this customer why they picked us, and they read our reviews, and that's 100% the reason they decided on us.
Yeah.
They never would have had the opportunity had they not been seen.
So first thing is just kind of get seen, and then the reviews are going to help you further differentiate from other folks who happen to be, making that list.
Exactly.
Is there a good formula for a review? Like when you go to, ask for a review, what do you want people to actually say or write in the review? Is there a strategy or a formula here that makes them more impactful or more useful?
I never tried to tell people what to write. When our software requests reviews, sometimes people, we say something like, hey, please write us a review. It would mean so much to me and my family, because you're a local service business, right? Yeah. When somebody writes a review, you're helping out my kids.
Yeah.
When somebody reads that review request, if they kind of get that little tear in their eye, they're going to write a heartfelt, passionate review, right? So because they know that they're actually helping you and your family. It's not just some big corporation that doesn't care. So,
interesting.
Yeah. So that emotional incentive actually gets better quality reviews than just something that's dispassionate and just go, it looks like a machine wrote it.
Yeah.
So, we do a lot of analysis of what the psychology is behind what incentivizes people. And we never want to do like a monetary incentive or anything like that, because people,
interesting.
There's not that emotional feel to it. And what we've noticed is the emotional reviews where people are almost like, this guy came and saved my, my roof was leaking and it was 5 degrees outside, and, snow was coming in, and, the roofer came out and put that in right above my kid's head, saved our house from getting flooded out. Whatever the story is, those stories incentivize emotionally the next people to come along and buy from you. So, obviously there's people who are like business type relationship people where they're going to type in a dispassionate, Bob did a good job, thanks, type of review. Mm-hmm. But the ones that get people to buy are the emotional ones, because you want to get those emotional buyers.
And I like that idea that the monetary incentives actually work against you. I've always felt that, and I've always kind of, from a sales process, we've always said, people make decisions based on emotions and logic, and I think you kind of do yourself a disservice to try to, give up, $5 or $10 or, 10% off your next purchase to kind of promote the review, and instead kind of focus on the emotional connection, the passion side of it than the financial incentive side of it. I mean, I guess how have you kind of discovered that, or why do you think that works?
It was really just trial and error. We bought licenses to all of our competitors' software, and we looked at how they were working, and we're like, man, it looks like some AI machine wrote these review requests. And so we did some A/B testing with some of our early customers where we're like, hey, can we write like 4 different types of review requests and see not only what the response rate is, but also what types of reviews you get from different types of requests.
Yeah.
And, I've never seen there's tons of review software out there now, but, that's all venture capital backed. But you got to remember who's in those businesses, or they're run by business people who are just thinking of this as like a spreadsheet. It's all numbers to them.
Yeah.
How many subscribers do we have? How much churn do we have? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
With us, I always say that our business was funded by the Bank of Joe and Bethany. That's my wife's name. So, when I'm talking to business owners and I'm looking at their business, we look at it from a personal perspective, because almost all these service businesses, what they tell you is 90% of my business comes from referrals, right? So if 90% of their business is coming from referrals, and I actually did a test with my neighbor across the street, he backed into his garage door. I have a garage door guy in my B&I chapter. So I walked over there and I'm like, hey, I know a guy. He's great. And he was like, oh yeah, what's his name? And why I'm telling him his name, he's Googling him and reading his reviews.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So not only did he get the business from a referral, but if that he had poor reviews or poor showing on Google, he may have not, the garage door guy may not have got that business.
Yeah.
So the two play a part into each other. And I understand that, I think, better than a lot of folks do, because my business is 90% referrals.
Yeah.
So when I help out Brent, the guy who owns the maid cleaning business, and then he refers me to his buddy who owns a carpet cleaning business, who refers me to the guy who's a painter, those people have a personal relationship with each other. And I want that to be portrayed in everything that we do, that's our focus is not only the reviews, not only showing up on Google Maps, but creating those personal relationships from what you're putting out in the market, not just from the personal relationships you already have.
Yeah. Yeah. So lay out for, if someone listening to this who's, owner of a service-based business who, is fairly localized, what are the steps, or what's the kind of checklist that you give them in terms of how to really take advantage of the platform, of the Google Maps platform, and what are the things I need to do? What do I start and what do I do next?
Yeah. So, first thing obviously is get your Google My Business profile. And a lot of people have one that like a web developer created for them like years ago. So it's sitting out there, but there's nobody managing it anymore. Yeah. So if you go on and you find your listing and there's a manage this listing option there, definitely click on that and gain control of your listing. And then Google has a verification process now where they're going to mail you a postcard. It takes 5 days. I would say half of the postcards come in the mail and people just throw them in the garbage, because they think it's
they don't know what it is.
So, just make sure that you look out for those postcards, get your listing verified, and then go through the profile. There's like most of the service businesses are not on LinkedIn, but on platforms like that, there's like a little dial that says, how filled out is your profile? Is it 80%, 60%, 50%, whatever? Make sure that profile is 100% filled out. Mm-hmm. And then at least do the step of filling out your products and services on there. So, that step right there will help you almost more than anything to start out with. And then make sure that your photos are named properly. Don't just post them from your iPhone, put them on your computer and name them whatever the photo is so that Google knows what that is. And then, obviously doing geotagging and metadata on photos is kind of like your next step. And probably most people on this call don't understand what that means. But, that is the thing that will drive eyeballs to your listing, is ensuring that all of your content, whether it's photos or videos, are properly geotagged and have keywords put into them, and your name, address, and phone number is embedded into the photos. So I've noticed that posting a photo that's not geotagged and posting photos that are, you'll get 400% or 500% more eyeballs on your listing than one that is.
Yeah.
So you gotta make sure that you're doing that. That's the critical thing that people overlook, where they're just like dumping photos out there and they're not ensuring that they're named properly and the metadata is not embedded in the photo. And almost nobody uses posts. I always tell people, if you're going to do stuff on Facebook, and I'm a numbers guy, so here's a statistic that most small businesses owners don't understand. There was a survey that went out. B&I sent out a survey, 100,000 business owners that are in B&I in the United States. 2.3% of their business came from Facebook and social media last year. The year before that, it was 2.2%. So Google accounted for 17%. So and 68% obviously was referrals, but 17%. So if you're going to post something, why post it? I'm not saying don't post it on Facebook, but ensure that you're also getting the 17% by posting it on Google My Business and ensuring that those posts are being seen, by putting a photo on there and putting some content in there and ensuring that you're putting that content, and Google knows that you're interacting with their platform. So they're going to boost your listing.
Yeah, no, great advice. Joe, this has been a pleasure. If people want to find out more about you, about the business, about how they can participate in the courses and learn more about how to leverage Google Maps, what's the best way to get that information?
The best way is to reach out to me directly on Facebook. My name is Joe Mikitish. My last name is spelled Mikitish. There's not very many of us, so you can easily find me.
And you're all related?
Yeah, I've got there's three of us in the United States, so pretty easy to find me.
Yeah.
I'm not the chef and I'm not the judge.
There you go.
And then, winningreviews.com, you can always check out our software there. Our classes are not on there. They're always being updated. But reaching out to me, and I'm happy to do a free analysis of your Google My Business listing.
Awesome.
Doesn't cost you anything. I'll give you 15 minutes of my time, no charge, and I'll walk you through the listing. And if you get enough benefit out of that you can go do it on your own, have at it.
Yeah.
If you want to take it further and come to my class, then that would be a good way to take it to the next level. I would say half the people who get on 15-minute calls with me, that's all they need, and they can go party hardy with their business, and then they just stay in touch with me over time and come back when they need me.
Good. I'll make sure that the links are in the show notes so people can click through, get the information. I would highly encourage everyone listening to take Joe up on the offer. I'm always surprised how many people don't, but I know the people that do end up getting the benefit. So, bias towards action, take action. But this has been great. I think this is an area that I kind of know a little bit about. I've worked with several different local service businesses, and I've seen some do really, really well, and I've seen some not do so well. And I think I have a better understanding why. So I think this has been helpful for me, and I think it's been really helpful for everyone listening. So I really appreciate the time and you being on the program today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Bruce. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Scaling Up Services with business coach Bruce Eckfeldt. To find a full list of podcast episodes, download the tools and worksheets, and access other great content, visit the website at scalingupservices.com. And don't forget to sign up for the free newsletter at scalingupservices.com/newsletter.